Hi, favourite people. I thought we could talk about manifesting a secure attachment style, or how to move into a secure attachment style, either from an anxious attachment style or a avoidant, whichever one you are on the scale, fearful avoidant or dismissive avoidant. So, essentially, an attachment style is just the story that we tell ourselves. That is how we determine which attachment style we belong to, based on the thoughts that we have surrounding certain situations or scenarios or relationships or things that come up in our relationships, right? So it's all self-concept. It is all the story that we tell ourselves about people. It's all the story that we tell ourselves about us and how people are treating us and how people are showing up in our lives, and the reasons and meanings that we're assigning to certain behaviors outside of us. And so, number one thing that I really find important when you're talking about wanting to move into a secure attachment style is that you don't overly identify with anxious or avoidant, okay? This is important because if you are over identifying it, if you are affirming, because that's what this is, I am anxious is an affirmation, I am avoidant is an affirmation, and I am are two of the most powerful words in the English language. And so whatever it is that you are following it with is what will be your reality. Now, it is important and worthwhile for you to know about the kind of behavioral tendencies or the stories that people with your attachment style say and think, and the way in which they engage in relationships, because it will help you with awareness, right? And every time you are aware of showing up in that self-concept or in that attachment style, you can revert back to being secure and telling yourself a better story. So we don't want to be overly identifying with the label of the attachment style, but we do want to practice awareness of behavior and language and story. And it's really helpful to know how that sort of plays out in different people's lives in order for you to be able to shift it. So yes, go and watch the attachment videos or read the attached book, but a lot of people have been coming to me recently because I speak about the attached book by Dr. Adam Levine, I think it is, quite a lot, and I have spoken about it for years. And so people tend to go and buy the book, and then they come back to me a few months later because they've now spiraled out of control and they're actually becoming more anxious or more avoidant than they were because they're overly identifying with the label and with the behaviors. And then any behaviors that they may not have even been engaging in before, they now are, because they have identified with that attachment style, and then they have made themselves aware of that's how that person's attachment style acts, and therefore it just gets embedded into their self-concept and starts to happen and unfold naturally. And so there is a method to this, okay? You want to be just practicing awareness. And so every time you find yourself in a state of feeling anxious, or playing mind games, or withdrawing, or being dismissive of your partner, or starting to, for example, in the avoidance case, starting to make up excuses or run a negative story about them when things have been perfectly fine. When you bring awareness to the fact that you're doing this, you can start to shift it. And so that is the only reason it is helpful for you to be aware of this, okay? We're not going to just be assigning ourselves a new label and then starting to spiral out of control into that label or into those types of behaviors or tendencies, okay? Now, the difference, and the only difference that happens between anxious and avoidant people and secure people, is that secure people are not internalizing other people's behavior. Secure people are not feeling threatened or triggered by the connection. Secure people are telling themselves a better story about themselves and about their relationships, whereas avoidance and anxious people are berating themselves, shaming themselves, saying negative things about themselves, making other people's behavior or other people's words about them, and the lack of importance that they have in other people's lives, or the exaggerated importance that they have in other people's lives. So for example, avoidant people feel like their partners are too clingy, too needy, extremely anxious, even when they're just showing up in a loving way. Like, they don't even have to go far out of their way to make an avoidant person feel like this. Avoidant people will just naturally go to that thought and go to that feeling when they are requiring settling their own nervous system because they feel threatened and triggered by how close they are getting to another person. It then starts to feel like a turn off for them, that the other person still wants to see them, that the other person still wants to be around them, because they're scared that that will eventually stop and they will be abandoned. And then for the anxious people then constantly feel like their partner is withdrawing from them, that their partner doesn't want anything to do with them, that their partner doesn't love and support them in the way that they need, etc., etc., etc. The secure person just is. The secure person is just enjoying their life, enjoying their relationship. And if something is happening with the partner, for example, they're withdrawing or they're becoming clingy or needy or wanting more connection and love, the secure person just shows up appropriately. The secure person is able to communicate healthily. And so that's the only difference. It's the story that you're telling yourself about your relationship. Or if you're not in a relationship at the moment and you're wanting to shift your attachment style, it's a story that you're telling yourself about you, about your exes, and about your friends and family and the way in which they're showing up in your life. So, I mean, it's really simple. You don't even have to be in a relationship in order to shift your attachment style. It's actually super easy for you to do it alone, because you're still engaging in attachments regardless, albeit they won't be as strong and as significant. And if you're somebody who has got BPD, it might not be your favorite person, but you are still engaging in the world with people, and the way in which they show up for you is still significant and important via your story. And all you have to do is shift the story about why people are acting like this. Okay, so all it comes down to, like with anything in this world, is the thoughts that we decide to think about these situations. And so choosing what to focus on, focusing on what you want and not what you don't want. So I am always loved and supported. I am fine by myself. I enjoy being alone. I enjoy being loved and supported, etc., etc., depending on which scale you're on, right? So if you're avoidant and you feel uncomfortable with people showing and giving you that amount of love, you need to start to affirm, I deserve this. I deserve love and support. I deserve for someone to want to spend their time with me. I deserve for people to enjoy my company. And they deserve my company. They deserve my input. They deserve my love and support. And I enjoy consistent love. I enjoy consistent harmony in my relationships, etc., etc., etc. And it's just starting to shift the story if you're avoidant and it's not something that you enjoy, or if it's something that starts to threaten and trigger you, starting to shift the story. Now, the awareness for you will come in when you start to feel like, oh, that person is really getting on my nerves. We've spent too much time together. I want space to myself. Why are they acting like that? Whatever it is that comes up in your mind with your story, right? You want to start changing that and instead start focusing on what feels good to you. So I am enjoying our relationship. I love that my partner loves me. I love that my partner is always there for me. I love that my partner makes a point of being available for me regardless of what's going on or whatever. And if you're anxious, again, not focusing on the withdrawal in people or people not being there or whatever it is that comes up in your story, and instead focusing on the love and support that you are receiving. What you focus on grows. So the more you start to focus on being loved, being supported, and how consistent and healthy all of your relationships and connections are, the more you will start to experience it, the more love and support you will start to receive, and the more consistent you will see people are being with you. Okay? So it's all the story. It's that easy. So don't try not to overly identify with it. It is just about awareness. And every time you are practicing awareness of where you are, if you are not engaging in a healthy relationship dynamic or you are feeling triggered, resort to yourself and shift the story into something that feels good and that feels better. I am secure is an affirmation too. Okay, I have a secure attachment style. I am secure. I show up in my relationships healthily. I have harmonious and loving and healthy relationships. All of these types of affirmations will help to shift you, and they will also by default and subconsciously help you shift the story that you're narrating about your connections and about your relationships. So these are really good affirmations for you to use. And just enjoy yourself, okay? I want you to just enjoy being with you if you're anxious. This is something that's really, really important that I actually think healed me so much, like so much, is just the ability to be able to spend time with myself and do things that I enjoy and not need a partner there with me. So for example, I'd see an event or I'd see a restaurant somewhere I really, really want to go, and if my partner didn't want to go or didn't, I don't know, whatever came up, I would wait. Like, I would literally wait for my partner to be able to be available in order to come for that thing. And oftentimes I missed out. There were pop-up Christmas events that I wanted to go to that my partner didn't feel that she wanted to spend money on, or didn't want to be going out every weekend like I do. And there were a lot of things that I could have experienced, but I didn't, because I felt like I needed her to be there with me, or the weekend would come and I needed plans with her because that's how I spend my weekends. It's just a given. I spend my weekends with my partner, and now I'm okay doing what I want and the things that I want by myself, because you can literally, you will not catch me missing another opportunity or another experience because I feel like somebody else needs to be there. The other thing I'll add is something I found really, really interesting since moving more into secure and like after I ended my last relationship, was that I wasn't as anxious as I thought I was. And I wasn't as anxious as my avoidant partner was making me feel I was, right? And because, again, I had the anxious label, and because I was reading these books and I was aware of these behaviours, and she is avoidant, and so things, natural, normal things that happen in every single relationship, or should be happening in every single relationship, she felt was clingy and needy, and it wasn't. But because I already had this label on me, it was easier for me to pick up, you're right, I am clingy, you're right, I am needy, I do want to spend lots of time with you. And it wasn't until I've had hindsight, because we all know how great hindsight is, right? I realised that actually the way in which I was engaging in terms of wanting support and wanting connection and wanting time was not out of the ordinary. And so if you're an anxious person who is dealing with an avoidant, specifically a dismissive avoidant, you may find that you are being told or convinced or made to feel like you are more anxious than you are, because their wounds are being triggered, and so to them it feels like you're being incredibly anxious, but actually you're showing up as most partners would. And so healing that has been really, really helpful for me, being able to detach from my ex-partner's idea of how I was supposed to be, detaching from my ex-partner's story of who I was and how I was showing up in the relationship. And I did that from an awareness of, she's thinking and speaking and narrating her story from I'm her and I don't feel comfortable when you get close and we feel connected. And being able to recognize that within your partner without overly identifying it and spending too much of your focus there is really healing, because it allows you as the anxious person, which is fucking-mental, to see who you are and gain your own ideas and beliefs and clarity of who you are in a relationship and what you think is important and what behaviours you think are appropriate and which behaviours you don't think are appropriate. You will be able to stand up for yourself more, and you will be able to get into a place where you are not beating yourself up because of somebody else's reaction, and you won't just take their reaction to be gospel, for lack of a better word, right? And as for the avoidant people, again, you will find, if you're in a relationship and you're still engaging with an anxious partner and you're in this dynamic, you will find that refraining from labeling and defining them as anxious, or affirming, because that's what you're doing when you're thinking, or when you're telling a story or telling your friends or talking to yourself about your relationship, that's what you're doing. You are affirming. So when you are feeling triggered by your anxious partner and the way in which they're showing up, or how often they want to see you, or whatever it is that comes up for you, try to redefine the way that you're narrating that story, because what you're doing is creating a reality where you are boxed in and closed in and being suffocated by someone. We're actually in the 3D, and I'm just saying this from my own perspective because I was on the other side of it. It may not actually be happening, but it just feels like that because of the story that you're telling yourself. And you may find that your relationship gets so much easier and more harmonious and just more enjoyable in general if you stop thinking and perceiving everything they do to be trying to infringe on your personal space or trying to get something from you that you don't feel you're able to give, etc., etc., etc. So all comes down to the story. Affirm for yourself that you are secure, that you are happy, that you are consistent, and that you enjoy being in a consistent relationship. That is a good affirmation for both parties, whether you're anxious or avoidant. I enjoy being in a consistent, healthy and harmonious relationship. Perfect affirmation for that. That will really help you. But other than that, it's about ensuring that you're narrating the story in a way that feels good and healthy for you. The other thing is for you to gain clarity on what your relationship values are. I find this, and this important in a relationship. These are my non-negotiables. This is how often I want to see my partner. This is how often I want to have alone time. This is how I want to spend alone time. This is how I want to spend time with my partner. I want to go on X amount of dates a month. I want to be shown effort in X, Y, and Z ways. I want to show effort, love, and support in X, Y, and Z ways. Once you've got clarity, and I really recommend you write this out because we all know that I'm really into a journal. Write this out, okay? It helps to get your muddled up ideas out onto paper into being extremely clear. Once you've got clarity, nobody can test you. Nobody can try you. Your a partner, either anxious or avoidant, cannot challenge you on what it is that you're doing when you know, well, actually, this is what I want from a relationship. This is what I want to receive. This is how I want to show up. This is what I want the relationship to feel like. And if I'm engaging in those three things and it feels like that for me, then I'm not in the wrong. You're triggered. I think it's really, really important, again, especially since gaining hindsight with all of this, that you have clarity on what your relationship ideals are and what your relationship values are. And if you're manifesting a relationship, that's so important. It's just so important to know exactly what it is that you're wanting and what it is that you're creating and what it looks like. And just the cherry on top is that another person who may be triggered or maybe may have different ideas to you can't make you feel wrong for thinking or believing or wanting the things that you do if you understand that this is what you want and this is correct for you. That's your truth. If you get to a space where this is me out on paper, this is everything I want, and the other person has got very different ideas and values, we can talk about compromising. We can talk about having a mutual understanding of how we can make both of these versions of relationships work. And if not, we're not compatible. We have got very different ideas about what a relationship looks like, what love and connection looks like, how I want to be loved. And if somebody is unable to see it from your perspective, if somebody is unable to give that to you, don't waste your time. Stop wasting your time, okay? You can affirm, I have mutual understanding in my relationship. An affirmation I gave my client last night was, my relationship is built on a solid foundation of love and mutual understanding. Perfect. That will really help for you and your partner to get onto the same page. But ultimately, if you're coming from two very different places, there will be kinks that you need to iron out. There will be things that you need to compromise on, and this is where you can do the work, but you can't do it from a place of lack of clarity, and you can't do it from a place of not feeling secure within yourself and internalizing everybody else's thoughts and actions. For example, an anxious person will feel that an avoidant person's inability to see them several times a week will make them feel like the avoidant person doesn't love them, when actually the avoidant person is scared of connection. It's nothing to do with you. It's not that they don't love you enough. It's not that you're unworthy of the love that you're looking for. It's that they show up in relationships differently. And this is why clarity is super, 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 super important, okay? It will transform your disagreements and your relationship tremendously, okay? Yeah, gain some fucking clarity. Tell yourself a better story. And watch how more secure you feel and how much better your relationships get. Love you.